Hi, this is the Business Guy. So how do you protect real estate from lawsuits? I'm talking about shielding your home and investment property from being taken away because somebody wants to sue you. I started investing in real estate 37 years ago and have sold properties and pocketed well over $1 million in a single year. And once you have $1, there is somebody who wants to line up and take it away from you. So today, we're not just talking about building real estate castles in the sky. We're fortifying them against the dragons of litigation and the ogres of financial threat. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey through the ultimate guide of how to protect your real estate empire. In the US, the golden land of opportunities, most people who become millionaires do so in their 50s, not including their primary residence. Only 5% of people in the US are dollar millionaires. Even among them, other than a very small percent of inheritors and some lucky ones, it takes 3 to 4 decades of hard work in general. Instead of 30 to 40 years, somebody can file a lawsuit and take it all away from you in 3 to 12 months. The importance of asset protection. So imagine your real estate portfolio as your kingdom. You've worked hard, conquered lands, and now you're sitting on a throne of properties. But there's a kicker. Every king needs a defense strategy. Why? Because in the real world, lawsuits are like unexpected invasions. So let's talk about why asset protection isn't just smart, it's survival. Here's some statistics for you. There are over 90 million lawsuits in the US courts every year, about 500,000 federal cases. Now keep in mind there are only 128 million households in the United States. So that's an average of about 7 in 10 American households, including the businesses they own and work for, being sucked into the legal system each year. So that's like almost every castle in the realm being under siege. Now let's not forget, in the game of real estate, you're not just playing to win, you're playing not to lose. Here's a story. Let me tell you a story about a man named Gus. Gus wasn't just any real estate mogul. He was a king of his own empire. Towering skyscrapers, sprawling estates, and luxurious condos all bore his name. He had spent decades meticulously building his empire, brick by brick, deal by deal. To the outside world, Gus was untouchable, a titan who could weather any storm. But like all tragic tales, Gus had a fatal flaw. He overlooked the one thing that could bring his entire kingdom crashing down: asset protection. It all started as a normal day. Gus was in his penthouse office overlooking the city that he practically owned. His phone rang, a call that would mark the beginning of his downfall. On the other end was his lawyer, voice trembling, delivering the news. A massive lawsuit had been filed against him. A lawsuit so vicious that it was like a battering ram to the gates of his fortress. The claim was for a staggering amount, threatening not just one property, but his entire real estate empire. At first, Gus laughed it off, thinking it was just another nuisance he could brush aside. But as his days turned into weeks, the legal papers piled up on his desk, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. His assets were exposed, like a castle without walls. The vultures started circling, creditors and plaintiffs alike, smelling blood in the water. And the lawsuit wasn't just a single blow, it was a siege. Every day, Gus watched helplessly as his empire began to crumble. His prized properties were picked off one by one, auctioned off to the highest bidder. The buildings that once symbolized his power now represented his downfall. Tenants fled, investors turned their backs, and once loyal partners began to distance themselves, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Gus had no defenses. He had spent his life building wealth, but he had neglected to build the fortifications to protect it. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Frankly, he had been a fool. In his arrogance, he believed his empire was invincible, but now he was facing the terrifying reality reality that it could all be taken away. Night after sleepless night, Gus would sit in his empty penthouse, the city lights mocking him, a constant reminder that he was about to lose. The stress consuming him, turning his once confident stride into a nervous shuffle. The whispers of his impending doom followed him everywhere he went. He could feel the walls closing in, the noose tightening around his financial neck. Desperate, Gus turned to us. His voice, once commanding and full of authority, was now tinged with desperation and fear. He needed our help, but not just to stop the bleeding, but to rebuild, to reclaim even a fraction of what was once his. It was a daunting task, but we knew it wasn't impossible. Now, more about Gus in a bit. The legal structures to your castle walls. So how do you build these walls? Now, let's start with the basics. LLCs. Think of an LLC as your moat. It keeps your personal assets safe from legal battles of your business. But remember, you need to set it up right, or it's like having a moat with a drawbridge that's always down. Now, we'll cover how to properly structure your LLCs to ensure they're as effective as a moat filled with alligators. Land trusts. Now for privacy. We've got land trusts. We set up thousands of them, and they're like your invisibility cloaks for your property. Nobody knows you own it, which is perfect if you're planning a heist or just avoiding unwanted attention. So we'll explore how land trusts work and why they're essential for your residential properties. Okay, so here's some advanced asset protection strategies. But what if you want to go beyond the basics? Here's where it gets interesting, the series LLC. Imagine each property you own as a mini kingdom with high walls, a strong gate, and guards to protect it. Now picture these kingdoms all being part of a larger unified empire. And this is the essence of a series LLC. It is a traditional LLC. All of your assets and ventures are housed under one roof, meaning that if one part of your business faces a legal threat, everything is at risk. But with a series LLC, each property or business venture is like its own separate castle within the empire, each with its own defenses. Now here's how it works. Think of it like a cabinet with a bunch of separate cubby holes. So the series LLC acts as the overreaching entity, the empire, while each individual series within it operates like an independent unit with its own assets, liabilities, and operations. This means if one series, one of your many kingdoms, faces a lawsuit or financial trouble, the other series remain unaffected. The walls between them are strong, protecting the rest of your empire from the fallout. The drawback? Only 8 states plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico allow them. Those are Delaware, Illinois, Texas, Nevada, Tennessee, Utah, Iowa, and Oklahoma. If you don't live in one of those states, I would not use them because the series LLC may be disregarded in another state. Okay, now let's talk about equity stripping. Equity stripping is like siphoning off the treasure before the castle gets sacked. Let's say you take out the equity, leaving just enough for the property to stand, but not enough for a creditor to feast on. We'll discuss how to strip equity without triggering tax issues or loan defaults. And we do this by setting up an LLC, sometimes an offshore LLC, and recording equity line of credit mortgages against each property. Now, there's no money changing hands. So to the outside world, the properties look mortgaged to the hilt. If the mortgages get questioned in a court of law, we have third-party lenders who buy these liens and stick the proceeds in a you can't touch it account in your asset protection trust, which we'll talk about in a bit. So here are some real-world examples. Let's not just theorize, but let's look at some real-world scenarios. Example number 1. Remember Gus? He had a portfolio that could make Scrooge McDuck envious, but he almost lost it all due to a lawsuit. Now, thanks to our strategies, we made his assets safer than a dragon's hoard. We dove into the wreckage, surveying the damage and searching for anything that could be salvaged. It was a war zone. Accounts frozen, property seized, creditors circling like sharks. If he had contacted us before the legal attack, we would have saved his empire. But he contacted us after most of the houses were already out of the barn. But there were was still hope. Through strategic asset protection, we began to build new defenses. It was too late to save everything, but we could still save Gus from financial ruin. The process was slow, painstaking, like rebuilding a castle from the rubble. But piece by piece, Gus began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The siege was finally lifted, and though his empire was smaller, it was now fortified with walls that no battering ram could break. So Gus learned his lesson the hard way, a lesson he wouldn't forget for the rest of his life. The lawsuit that once haunted his every waking moment had finally been laid to rest. But the scars remain. He would never again underestimate the power of asset protection, and neither should you. Now, this story isn't just about Gus. It's a warning. Don't wait until the wolves are at your door. Build your defenses. Protect what you've built before it's too late. Here's another example, and there's a tale of the investor who used a land trust. When the lawsuit came knocking, they couldn't find him, let alone his assets. It was like he vanished into thin air. So we'll explore how this investor used land trust to maintain privacy and protect his wealth. We set up land trust for privacy of ownership. And then we set up LLCs as the beneficiaries of each land trust for investment property. So the land trusts provide privacy of ownership, and the LLCs provide asset protection and lawsuit protection, along with the equity stripping we just talked about. For those looking for the ultimate in asset protection, let's talk about offshore strategies. Cook Islands trusts. Imagine your assets on an island surrounded by laws that make creditors' heads spin. And that's what a Cook Islands Asset Protection Trust offers. Now, these are the most powerful tools of the investment world. So look at our videos on the Cook Islands Trust on our channel, as they provide a level of protection that's almost unbeatable. Belize Trust, similar to Cook Islands Trust, but with its own unique advantages. See our videos, and we cover why a Belize Trust might be a better choice for some investors, especially for those who are already in lawsuits, and how to set one up. Tax implications and considerations. Now, let's not forget about the tax man. Protecting your assets doesn't mean you can ignore your tax obligations. Tax neutrality. Almost all of the tools we employ are tax neutral. They do not increase or decrease your taxes. So we do our best to structure your assets for tax efficiency, ensuring that your protection strategies don't cost you more in taxes. Due on sale clauses. We use land trusts as intermediaries, so you can put property into LLCs and you don't inadvertently trigger a loan default. See our video on land trust to learn more about this. So there you have it. From simple moats to secret passages, from domestic strategies to offshore strategies, we've covered how to protect your real estate empire. Remember, in the game of real estate, you're not just playing to win, you're playing not to lose. If you want to ensure your investments are as secure as medieval fortresses, visit us at assetprotectionplanners.com, and you can get a lot more free information there. Make sure your castle stands strong against all invaders. This has been the Business Guy reminding you, in the world of real estate, it's not just about how big your castle is, but how well you can defend it. So until next time, keep your assets safe, your moats deep, and your strategies sharp.